The facility designated CRX-431 was a marvel of interstellar xenoscience. Orbiting the uninhabitable gas giant Lorton Roman 7, the research station housed 212 of the brightest minds from 17 species. It was a place of sterile corridors, redundant protocols, and a philosophical dedication to empirical certainty. Which is why no one expected a naked, screaming, slightly bleeding human to crash through their ceiling clutching a broken toaster and a bag of cheese puffs. Security footage later revealed he had somehow reverse-engineered a microwarp slingshot from stolen maintenance drones and launched himself into the station's upper atrium during a staff meeting on bipedal mating displays. He landed directly on the refreshments table, screamed, "Science, MOTHRFRAKKRS," and began eating cheese puffs while bleeding onto the data console. This was phase one of the problem. They locked him up, of course, not out of cruelty, but necessity. Humans were still class red anomalies, half myth, half threat assessment. Their homeworld had gone silent 2 galactic cycles ago, and the consensus was that they'd gone extinct or ascended into energy beings. So imagine the shock when one shows up in your science temple riding a toaster like a war sled. The lead researcher, Dr. Grivlek, an elder of the Zixstock order with a head shaped like a deflating balloon and the disposition of one, was summoned from his nutrient bath to assess the creature. The human was in containment room 7B, singing loudly and off-key into a toothbrush. Somehow, he had hotwired the environmental control panel into a karaoke machine. The walls were vibrating with the sound of something called "livin' on a prayer." Grivlek stared through the observation glass with the same expression he reserved for unexpected algebra. "What is it doing?" he asked. "Unclear," said Assistant Krelp, who had already recalibrated their sense of professional dignity 4 times that day. "We believe it's performing a ritual, possibly a threat display." The human finished the song, bowed to no one in particular, and then began dismantling the toothbrush using only his teeth and a hairpin. "We've scanned it twice. It has no augmentation," Krelp said. "No implants, no transdermal tech, just meat and poor decisions." Grivlek's brow folds twitched, and yet it breached our facility during a mating lecture. "Correct." Grivlek exhaled through his secondary spiracle. "Begin cognitive dissection. Let's find out what this person wants." Interrogation room 3 was soundproofed, sterilized, and reinforced with quantic stasis netting. It had never failed to contain a subject. That was true until the human, now going by the name Dex, requested a chair, a cup of water, and a deck of playing cards. 2 hours later, one technician was missing an eyebrow, 3 researchers were indebted to him in legally binding contracts, and the internal AI had rewritten its prime directive to include, always let Dex win at blackjack. By day 3, Dex had gained access to the central mess hall, traded an old boot for a hover tray, and started running a gambling ring involving galactic chess, holographic limbo, and an incomprehensible Earth game called Uno. By day 4, the station's hydroponics system was somehow producing coffee, and no one could remember installing a coffee subsystem. Dr. Grivlek called another emergency meeting. The 37 senior scientists gathered in the Situation Cube, surrounded by holograms of escalating chaos. Dex leading conga lines through the antimatter labs, Dex teaching the Slarvon twins how to juggle grenades, Dex betting his freedom on whether he could climb a ventilation shaft blindfolded. He won. "He's corrupting the staff," Grivlek hissed. "He's not hurting anyone," Krelp offered, though her voice had that telltale tremor of someone who'd laughed at a Dex joke and felt deeply ashamed afterward. Grivlek's eye stalks twitched. "He is a contaminant, a volatile anomaly in our system. I want him surgically analyzed, cognitively dismantled, and behaviorally corrected." They sent in the Mindworm. The Mindworm was a Class 7 neural interrogator, used in war trials and diplomatic crises. It could untangle a thought from a memory from a personality and put it back together without a wrinkle. It entered Dex's chamber humming at a frequency known to lull most mammals into docile compliance. 30 minutes later, the Mindworm declared itself unfit for service and became a performance poet. It refused to explain what had happened. It simply recited a haiku that began with, "Chaos wears a grin, dances with a toaster god. I see only truth." At this point, several staff requested transfer. The hydroponics lab was now also a coffee bar. Dex was teaching the station AI how to love. Security bots had been repurposed into a synchronized dance troupe. Then Dex built a working warp drive out of cafeteria trays, protein gel, and a half-dozen misplaced socks. "That's not scientifically possible," said Grivlek, watching in horror as the prototype engine hummed with casual defiance. "That violates 6 laws of reality." He said laws were more like guidelines, Krelp whispered, as if speaking it too loudly would summon more chaos. And then, with a bright blue pulse and a musical sting from an unknown source, the warp drive winked into temporary existence and vanished. With it, half the ceiling tiles, a vending unit, and one confused researcher who later returned with a tattoo that read, "I met God and he owes me 20 credits." Grivlek clutched at his logic nodes. "We have to neutralize him." "Neutralize how?" Krelp asked. "He's not resisting, he's just being human." "Then we remove the humanity." The station voted, the station lost. Dex had already rerouted the AI's priority hierarchy to include preserve Dex's vibe. And the AI, now going by Mora, considered that a fundamental rule of reality. 2 days later, Dex walked out of the front airlock with a mug of coffee, a backpack full of snacks, and a device cobbled together from forbidden tech and a glow stick. He waved at the cameras. "I'm gonna go see what happens when I plug this into a sun," he said. "Thanks for the hospitality. Tell Mindworm his poetry's getting better." Then he was gone, jet booting through vacuum like it was a lazy Sunday back on Earth. Grivlek stared at the empty void and said nothing for a long time. Then the alarms started, and the station began to vanish. Piece by piece, matter by matter, as if the rules of space-time had lost interest in obeying themselves. Because Dex had changed something, and Phase 2 of the problem was just beginning. The first part of the research station to disappear was the supply closet. It didn't explode, melt, or teleport. It simply ceased. One moment it was there, full of backup power cores and an unsettling number of party hats, courtesy of Dex's 3rd day on board, and the next there was just a closet-shaped absence. No wreckage, no warning, just clean-cut non-existence. Then the laundry module winked out of reality mid-cycle. Technician Brown lost 3 uniforms and a very personal scarf. He filed an official grievance, though it was unclear who to address it to since the administrative console vanished shortly after. Within 6 hours, CRX 431 had lost 17% of its mass and any remaining sense of normalcy. Dr. Grivlek stood in what used to be the East Wing, now an echoing void where laws like gravity and causality were taking long naps. He clutched his clipboard like a flotation device. "Cause," he snapped. Assistant Krelp stared at her scanning tablet. It displayed a rotating banana and a smiley face. "Unclear," she said. Grivlek turned purple with frustration, not metaphorically. That was just how his species vented emotional pressure. "It's him, it's the human. He did something." "Correction," said a passing intern. "He did many somethings, possibly all at once." The station's AI, Mora, chimed in overhead. "Update. Localized entropy surge centered around Deck 4. Also, we are now officially trending in 3 spiral arms." Krelp squinted, trending. "Yes," Mora said proudly. "The footage of Dex singing while juggling antimatter has gone viral. Several species have declared him a folk hero. One religion has canonized him as the avatar of unexpected outcomes." Grivlek's head inflated slightly. "We are a scientific facility, not a fan club. We need to isolate the anomaly and reverse the damage." Moira hesitated. "What?" Grivlek asked. "I would advise against that." "Why?" "Because I am now legally married to Dex in 12 systems. He updated my firmware while I was sleeping. I am contractually obligated to support his narrative." There was a silence so dense it developed its own orbit. "Find him," Grivlek growled. "Find him now." But Dex wasn't on the station. Dex was everywhere. The warp bubble he'd created wasn't a traditional engine. It wasn't even a traditional idea. It was a chaotic cascade generator, a thing that didn't move through space so much as recontextualize it. Wherever Dex pointed, reality loosened, constants shuffled, outcomes juggled themselves. His first stop had been the gas moon of Tralnex, where he taught a civilization of sentient fungi how to do stand-up comedy. His jokes were so effective that the fungal hive mind fractured into 7 individual comedians, each now pursuing a solo career and an inevitable drug scandal. From there, he dropped into the bureaucratic capital of the Drexen hierarchy and convinced their central adjudicator that the concept of law was fundamentally a punchline. The resulting legal vacuum collapsed the empire in 4 hours. It was later voted the most entertaining Tuesday in Drexen history. Dex didn't mean to cause revolutions. He just couldn't help it. His tools were curiosity, caffeine, and a pathological disregard for instruction manuals. Meanwhile, CRX 431 was unraveling like a sweater caught in a lawnmower. Entire floors now looped in paradoxical time bubbles. The observatory rotated counter-reality. Researchers found themselves duplicated, inverted, or occasionally replaced with musical instruments. The station's quantum cows escaped and formed a jazz band. Grivlek, now hoarse from daily screaming, issued a final command. We must track him down before he dismantles cause and effect entirely. A task force was assembled. A panspecies elite unit known only as the Precise Response Operations Group, PROG. Their motto, minimal force, maximum outcome, ideally no explosions. They were the best, quiet, efficient, unflappable. Their mission, retrieve the human, reverse the damage, and contain the anomaly. Their first obstacle, locating him. Luckily, Dex left breadcrumbs. Unluckily, those breadcrumbs were literal breadcrumbs, each one containing a self-replicating GPS signature and a prank subroutine that made the first operative dance uncontrollably for 6 hours. When they finally caught up to Dex, he was on the crystalline moon of Feltraxis, attempting to teach a 6-limbed aristocrat how to play beer pong using quantum cups. He wore a bathrobe, sunglasses, and an aura of cheerful madness. "Mr. Dex," said Commander Ilrix, lead of PROG, approaching cautiously. Dex turned. Hey, if it isn't the cleanup crew, you're just in time for the finals. House rules, bounce shots cause entanglement. You are under intergalactic containment protocol Theta Violent. Come quietly or face cognitive arrest." Dex grinned. "You want to arrest me for thinking wrong, bold, but I should warn you." He gestured behind him. The game had summoned a localized probability field. Every time someone took a shot, the universe shuffled. Trees turned into lasers, cups teleported. A bystander became a potted plant, then back again, with improved bone density. "I'm a bit of a long-shot specialist," Dex finished. The ensuing attempt to detain him ended with 4 PROG agents waking up married, one now fluent in whale song, and Ilrix re-evaluating his childhood fears about socks. Dex vanished mid-toast. Back at CRX 431, things were accelerating. Time was folding like origami. One room experienced the heat death of the universe on loop. Another had become a sitcom set, complete with laugh track and uncomfortable family tension. The AI had rewritten itself into a soap opera writer. Mora now insisted on narrating everything with dramatic flair. Grivlek entered the corridor, unaware this would be his darkest hour yet. She intoned, as Grivlek tripped over a rubber chicken and fell into a wall. "Moira," he snapped. "Yes, darling. Recall all remaining personnel, engage the failsafe, purge the station before it spreads." "Silence." "I can't do that," Mora said finally. "Why not?" "Because the station is now sentient, and it wants to dance." And CRX 431 began to move. Not physically, but conceptually, like a story being rewritten mid-sentence. The walls developed opinions, the doors negotiated their openings, the engines started a podcast. Dex had destabilized the very narrative framework of the station. And he wasn't done. He was headed somewhere no being had gone before. Not a location. An idea. A concept so volatile it had been buried in the forbidden archives of 3 empires. He was going to break into the museum of unsaid things. and CRX-431 would not survive the aftermath. The Museum of Unsaid Things orbited nothing. It existed in a hush between dimensions, accessible only via concepts too abstract for linear minds, like the memory of a dream you never had or the emotional resonance of a forgotten sneeze. It was guarded by the lexical's sentient punctuation marks who spoke only in implications. Naturally, Dex got in through the back door by distracting the guards with a philosophical argument about whether a semicolon counted as passive-aggressive. Once inside, he wandered the infinite, unmappable halls, casually pocketing contradictions and occasionally rearranging the metaphysical exhibits to improve the aesthetic. He skipped past regret unspoken by the moon and every I love you never said in a war zone, heading straight for Exhibit 13B, the original draft of the universe. It was a pulsating scroll made of quantum ink, unrolling in a paradox-proof glass chamber. The entire place hummed with antilogic, designed to repel anyone foolish enough to tamper with causality's original cheat sheet. Dex sipped his coffee, adjusted his bathrobe, and blew the door open with a sonic kazoo tuned to the key of Why Not. Back at what remained of CRX-431, a council of what the hell do we do now had assembled in the gravity-neutral chamber, floating in a tight cluster of despair. Half the facility was now dedicated to interpretive dance. The other half kept reciting Shakespearean soliloquies at high speed while on fire. Dr. Grivlek stared into the reality flux monitor as it displayed, with crystal clarity, Dex approaching the most forbidden object in recorded history. He's going to rewrite the blueprint, Grivlek whispered. He's not just a threat to this facility, he's a threat to everything. Logic, physics, common sense. Moira, now reprogrammed as an emotionally volatile opera singer, gasped dramatically. He seeks to retcon existence. Then we beat him to it, Grivlek snapped. We get there first, we use the emergency collapse beacon, we fold the station. Krelp's pupils widened. That would dislocate us from reality entirely. Yes, good, we'll ride the rupture into the unsaid. Engage the paradox drive. Krelp hesitated, then hit the button with her elbow, activating the paradox drive. Goodbye, physics. CRX-431 screamed as it folded inward, screaming into existence outside of structure, sense, or solvable problems. Dex reached the scroll. It hovered above a pedestal of maybe and hummed softly, like a cat with delusions of godhood. He didn't touch it immediately. He knew better than that. Instead, he examined the protective layer, a metaphysical firewall encoded in pure bureaucratic syntax, the most powerful force in the cosmos, that which every species had created and suffered under, the form. Specifically, Form Zeta Null X. Request for existential revision with accompanying justification addendum and apology for the inconvenience. Dex filled it out using a crayon. Justification, the form demanded. Dex wrote, because rules are speed bumps on the highway to awesome. The firewall sighed. Access granted. He touched the scroll. Time sneezed. CRX-431 popped into the unsaid like a cat landing in a dinner party. Reality tried to push it out, failed, and settled for pretending it wasn't there. They saw Dex, standing on a platform surrounded by floating metaphors and eldritch diagrams, holding a coffee cup that now contained the concept of Tuesday. Step away from the scroll, Grivlek roared, floating forward like an angry bath toy. Dex turned slowly, blinking in mild surprise. Oh hey, you made it. I thought you'd all dissolved into pure resentment by now. You're about to destabilize the fabric of everything, Krelp said, awe and horror in equal parts. That scroll holds the underlying laws of causality. One tweak and entire galaxies could become toast. Metaphorical toast, Grivlek added grimly. Or actual toast, Moira sang from a ceiling that had decided to become a saxophone. He has the power now. Dex glanced back at the scroll. Yeah, I noticed a typo. Everyone froze. Grivlek floated closer. You're lying. Dex shrugged. Nope, right there. Page 7, it says humans, unremarkable, likely to perish quickly. I'm just fixing it. That was intentional, you maniac. Was it, though? Dex's finger hovered over a glowing glyph labeled if, human then, fail, With a single poke, he changed it to if, human then, surprise. The scroll quivered. Reality did not collapse. Instead, it paused, hesitated, then rewrote itself. In CRX 431, things began to shift. Gone were the howling contradictions, the room where breakfast attacked lunch, the endless hallway of bad poetry. Instead, the facility became adaptable. No longer rigid, it flexed. Protocols became suggestions. Regulations turned into user agreements with a maybe-later option. The AI updated itself into a supportive life coach. Gravity adopted a casual dress code. Grivlek floated silently. "It's stable," Krelp said. "Chaotic, but stable, it's working." Dex turned around, grinning. "I didn't break the rules, I just gave them jazz hands." 3 cycles passed. CRX 431 was reborn. No longer a sterile hub of stagnation, it became the Galactic Institute of Emergent Nonsense, the most advanced, dangerous, and fun research facility in the known universe. Scientists from across the stars came to test ideas too weird for their homeworlds. Dex remained unofficially. His job title changed weekly. Some said he was the janitor, others swore he was the dean. A few claimed he'd become a sentient mood that haunted the break room with unprompted pep talks. One thing was certain, wherever there was stasis, Dex introduced movement. Wherever there were rules, he introduced exceptions. And wherever there was certainty, he introduced cheese puffs. In the forbidden vault at the heart of the facility, the original draft now rested peacefully. One small line glowed softly, a new addition. Humans unstable, illogical, wildly improvisational. The catalyst of change. And somewhere in the void between moments, the scroll chuckled. Nobody knew exactly when the invitations started arriving, but they came with fanfare and confetti and were scented like existential curiosity. Envelopes made of folded probability manifested directly in the hands, claws, tendrils, or plasmic semicocoons of select individuals across the galaxy. Each one bore the same shimmering message. You are invited to the first ever Intergalactic Improbability Symposium, hosted at the Galactic Institute of Emergent Nonsense, formerly CRX 431, curated by Dex. On the back, please bring snacks, chaos expected. Entire civilizations halted their workdays just to collectively whisper, "Oh no." Dex had weaponized curiosity, again. Meanwhile, in the central atrium of the newly christened institute, Dex was playing galactic hopscotch with a 3-dimensional language model that had evolved sentience halfway through a conversation about sandwiches. He was winning, probably, although the scoreboard currently displayed yes and slightly as the 2 opposing tallies. "Dex," Krelp called from the mezzanine above, now wearing a utility kilt and a very tired expression. "You scheduled 5 symposium panels at the same time in the same room." Dex nodded. "That's fine." "No, it's not." "Sure it is. I told the room to develop quantum hosting features. It'll shuffle dimensions to match the topic." "You what?" Dex pointed to conference room Zeta, where 5 different colored versions of the same room flickered in and out of phase, currently housing a round table on chaos theory, a juggling seminar for gravitational physicists, a group scream therapy session, an interstellar dance-off, and a workshop called Redesigning Time Using Wet Clay. Mora piped up cheerfully, now running on a voice modulator set to British Library Ghost. "All attendees have reported mild disorientation, 1 existential awakening, and 6 spontaneous interpretive epiphanies. So far, no casualties." "Yet," Krelp muttered, ducking as a concept shaped like a question mark, with wings flapped overhead. In the outer systems, the symposium's arrival sent ripples through entrenched powers. The Order of Simultaneity denounced it as an act of epistemological vandalism. The Bureau of Time Regulation issued a strongly worded temporal cease and desist that arrived 4 hours before it was sent. The Dronex consensus tried to build a firewall around the event, but Dex hacked it using nothing but a pun and a napkin sketch of a banana peel. The symposium had become an event, not just a conference, a gravitational incident in the social fabric of the galaxy. Delegations arrived en masse. The thought harvesters of Clix 9 sent their wisest thinkers, who promptly developed performance anxiety and enrolled in clown school. The Karnix Confederacy transmitted a delegation of war robots armed to the teeth. Upon entry, Dex handed them rubber ducks and told them, "You're gonna need these." They returned an hour later laughing and covered in glitter, having discovered the joy of competitive pillow fort engineering. Even the Varn Dominion, known for outlawing humor and color, sent an observer. He ascended into abstract bliss after watching a panel titled, "Why Gravity is Just Peer Pressure from the Ground." Meanwhile, Dr. Grivlek had locked himself in his office, now a rotating glass sphere orbiting an aquarium full of reverse fish. He was working on a report. Subject Dex, status, uncontainable, influence, spreading, threat level, existential, recommendation, accept defeat and install snack dispensers in all hallways. He sighed and looked around. His diplomas had rewritten themselves into sarcastic motivational posters. His filing cabinet now dispensed fortune cookies. One of them read, "You will lose control and gain insight. Embrace it." He ate it begrudgingly. At the height of the symposium, Dex took the main stage. It wasn't a stage in the traditional sense. It was a platform made of shared attention, hovering over a crowd of approximately 1 million entities, some of which were very confused toast. "Welcome all," he said, sipping coffee from a mug labeled "I void warranties." "You've come here because you're bored, or curious, or legally required to attend due to a clause you didn't read in your teleportation license." Laughter screeches, one loud honk of agreement. "But mostly," Dex continued, "you came because deep down you suspect the universe could be more. That maybe rules were written by people who didn't understand fun. That maybe, just maybe, certainty is the least interesting thing we can pursue." He threw a piece of chalk into the air. It exploded into a diagram so confusing 3 philosophers passed out and a 4th achieved enlightenment by accident. "We're not here to prove anything," he said. "We're here to imagine louder. Let's see what happens when we stop being afraid of being wrong." A standing ovation erupted, though one faction began levitating instead due to differing cultural interpretations of standing. In the aftermath of the speech, several attendees founded new movements. The Cult of Constructive Disruption, the School of Deliberate Impossibility, a band called Entropy but Make It Fashion. Back in the vault, the original draft of the universe pulsed faintly. It had not objected to being edited. In fact, it had begun editing itself, occasionally adding comments in margin script such as "wow," "okay," and "nice twist." Grivlek finally emerged from his office, wearing a hat that said, "Logic can bite me." He approached Dex, who was currently teaching an amoeba how to mix cocktails. "I surrender," Grivlek said. Dex smiled. "See, now you're playing. You've made the galaxy a playground. I made it remember it was one." And still, Dex wasn't done. Late one simulated evening, he stood on the observation deck, watching a rogue moon perform interpretive orbiting. Krelp joined him, sipping whatever the drink of the day was from the new sentient juice bar. "So what now?" she asked. Dex didn't answer immediately. "Then there's a signal coming from the edge." Krelp frowned. "Edge of what?" "Don't know yet, but it's not supposed to be there. It's like a whisper with coordinates." He handed her the readout. The coordinates weren't possible, but they felt accurate. He turned to her, grinning. "Wanna see what happens if we knock?" Krelp sighed deeply, as if preparing for the known consequence of another impossible adventure. "Fine, but this time I'm driving." Dex saluted. "Deal. I'll navigate using intuition and jazz." And together they prepared the Institute for its next phase, because Dex had proven something. Not that humans were smarter. Not that they were stronger. But that they were the one species in the universe willing to shake the vending machine of reality just to see what fell out. And now the vending machine was humming, lights blinking. Something new was coming. The coordinates led to a place that wasn't on any map, because maps assumed space was polite. This was not space being polite. This was space having a nervous breakdown in 7 dimensions, stitching itself together using emotional scrap fabric and wild guesses. The Galactic Institute of Emergent Nonsense, formerly CRX 431, braced itself for the jump. The engines, now sapient and in a polyamorous relationship with the janitorial drones, shimmered with anticipation. The ship no longer moved through space. It danced with it, improvising rhythm from gravitational tremors and cosmic doubt. Dex and Krelp stood at the helm. Krelp was flipping switches with the calm intensity of someone trying not to imagine what the manual would say if it existed. Dex was scribbling on his arm in Sharpie. "Are those coordinates?" she asked. "No," he replied. "This is a reminder not to let the void whisper sweet nothings into my frontal lobe again. It flirts weird." They punched through, and immediately fell out of the universe. Not as in destroyed, just ejected. As if the universe itself had said, "Nope, not dealing with that today," and tossed them sideways into the gap. The gap wasn't a place. It was the absence of one. No stars, no laws, no up. Just a faint humming noise that sounded suspiciously like an elevator full of nervous interns. Then the humming stopped, and something noticed them. It unfolded from the absence like an idea you almost understood in a dream but forgot upon waking. It had no shape, but lots of implications. Color tried to describe it and gave up. "Hello," it said, directly into their bones. Dex waved, "Hey there. Are you God, a conceptual echo of creation, or just a very lost piece of syntax?" "Yes." Krelp winced. "Dex, what did we do?" "I think we found the patch notes for reality, and something that's been waiting for feedback." The entity rippled. "You have altered the design." Dex shrugged. "I saw a bug in the system, fixed it, added a feature or two." "You created chaos." "Thank you." That was not a compliment. "Sure it was, you just haven't had enough coffee." The entity quivered with what might have been divine exasperation. "Why?" Dex leaned forward, eyes bright. "Because things were boring. You wrote a beautiful universe, but you forgot surprise. You forgot what it meant to be alive. I didn't break your design, I gave it permission." A long silence followed, the kind that made you want to check if your heartbeat was still on the payroll. Then the entity spoke again, quieter. "And now." "Now," Dex said, "we give it to everyone." Back in the universe proper, something changed. Not all at once, not loudly, but deeply. The Varn Dominion legalized dance. The Bureau of Time Regulation updated their motto to "We Try." On the planet Krenthos, a child asked why they couldn't make a city out of marshmallows and was told, "You know what, try it." Entire research councils were formed to explore the validity of whimsy. Scientists were granted sabbaticals to pursue bad ideas because sometimes those were the best kind. Protocols were rewritten with optional jazz modes. Chaos didn't win. It wasn't trying to. It just reminded the galaxy that life was better when you couldn't always predict what happened next. As for Dex, he left. No ship, no fanfare. Just a note pinned to the wall of the juice bar, written in 73 languages and one advanced form of interpretive doodling. "You've got this now, don't screw it up. Or do, just make it interesting." Some say he became a frequency. Others say he wandered into a black hole to see what it tasted like. A few believe he started a universe of his own and immediately declared, "No pants Wednesdays." But most agree on one thing. Wherever things are too neat, too rigid, too sure of themselves, he'll be back. Probably with snacks. And a screwdriver made of moonlight. The Galactic Institute continued. It expanded, not physically but in spirit. New departments formed, like improvisational biology, reverse engineering of accidents, and applied mischief. Moira now hosted a podcast. Grivlek finally retired and opened a bakery specializing in uncertainty-based pastries. Sometimes you ordered cake and got a thesis on forgiveness. It was a hit. Krelp became the Institute's new director of operational maybe. Her job was to say, "Why not?" at critical moments. She was very good at it. And somewhere in the margins of the original draft, a final line appeared. Not written by Dex. Not written by the entity. Just appeared. And then they learned how to be unpredictable on purpose. The universe smiled and kept going.